Hey, how's everybody doing today? So I wanted to put together a quick recording here. I came across some information that uh, I hadn't come across before. I wasn't aware of, and if would have known about this, it would have made all the difference in the world in the fraudulent case that Michael T. Hughes had brought against me, representing the state of Ohio, and the court with Kelly J. Cottrell uh, overseeing this fraud and um, and all who were involved. Keith A. Edwards, the court-appointed attorney who insulted me, who refused to acknowledge my constitutionally secured rights, and conspired with the others that I just mentioned to uh, violate my rights and due process. Now, what I want to bring to your attention, and this is for everyone, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you've got an out of control attorney working for the bar association, because let's face it, they all do, even the so-called judges, the bozo with the big shoes and the pink lipstick. Um, there's a thing called the Brady Rule. If you look it up, the Brady Rule, it's named after a court case, Brady versus Maryland, 373 U.S. 83 from the year 1963. And what this rule is, it's a rule that requires all prosecutors, whether federal prosecutor or state prosecutor or what have you, all prosecutors are required to disclose material exculpatory evidence in their possession to the defense. Uh, Brady material or evidence the prosecutor is required to disclose under this rule includes any evidence favorable to the accused, evidence that goes toward negating the defendant's guilt that would reduce a defendant's potential sentence, or evidence going to the credibility of a witness. Now, first of all, I'm not a defendant. I was forced to take that name because of Kelly J. Cottrell refusing to listen to my pleadings, refusing to pay attention to my affidavits, and stating to me in open court that he needed me to understand him so that way he could do whatever he wanted to do. He showed in open court that he had no unbiased position in the case. He had stake in the game because he needed me to go along with it so that way they could do whatever it was that they wanted to do. So, uh, it says here, if the prosecution does not disclose material exculpatory evidence under this rule and prejudice has ensued, the evidence will be suppressed. The evidence will be suppressed regardless of whether the prosecutor knew the evidence was in his or her possession, or whether or not the prosecutor intentionally or inadvertently withheld the evidence from the defense. Further, in cases subsequent to Brady, the Supreme Court has eliminated the requirement for a defendant to have requested a favorable information stating that the prosecution has a constitutional duty to disclose that is triggered by the potential impact of favorable but undisclosed evidence. Cites a couple other court cases here, Kyles versus Whitley, 514 U.S. 419 434 from 1995, and United States versus Bagley, 473 U.S. 667 from 1985. Um, it says that the defendant bears the burden to prove that the undisclosed evidence was both material and favorable. In other words, the defendant must not prove, or excuse me, the defendant must prove that there is a reasonable probability that the outcome of the trial would have been different had the evidence been disclosed by the prosecutor. And has a little bit more to describe all of this. And if you're more than you're more than welcome to look it up yourself. I'm citing this from Cornell Law website under the Brady Rule. It's law.cornell.edu / I can't read that. It's like WEX, WEX / Brady. If you go to any search engine and just search the Brady Rule from 1963, and it'll pull up the information. You can go to Cornell. There's other websites that have a breakdown of the Brady Rule. Now, what I want to make you all aware of, and during my cross-examination of the incompetent witnesses, let's see, Kaylee Hambrick, Kim Brown, and Stephanie Sheets, as well as David Tarbert. All four of these individuals took the stand and testified under oath against me. And in my cross-examination of these incompetent people, they admitted that not only were they not aware that there are state codes, Ohio revised codes, that require the municipality, and by default them, because they work for the municipality, they are required to address noise issues, disturbances, and so it says it plainly in the code. Now, what Michael T. Hughes refused to pay attention to, and everyone else involved, Jay Vinsel, I believe Emily Tarbert was part of this too. I have a whole list of about 25 names, not to mention the jurors. Now, granted, the jurors don't have any idea what the law is. They were just going by the information that was presented to them. In a way, although skewed, because they refused to pay attention to the information that came to light in my cross-examination as well as in my testimony, and presenting the case from my perspective regarding the fact that these people, all four of the witnesses, not only had a duty and an obligation to act, and it was because of their negligence and their refusal to act, which had led to the situation that they fabricated it and created this fraudulent case against me, that they manipulated the court to somehow finagle this so-called conviction. It was all based off of skewed information, skewed evidence, and they refused to look at the fact that these people had a duty to act. Now, Michael T. Hughes and Ronald Welch, the lead prosecutor and the one of the assistant prosecutors for the county, they ignored this fact. They ignored the fact that their witnesses and everyone involved had exculpatory evidence and information regarding the situation that was being alleged, and that the case should not have been brought in the first place because of the fact that these people had a duty to act, and instead of acting and doing their duty, they decided to attack me and bear false witness against me. That is how this whole thing played out in the court. It should never even have gone that far. But because of the games that the court played, and because of the games that people like Keith A. Edwards played, where basically trampling on my rights, stepping in to a matter that he had no business stepping into, according to him, it was because the court told him to. Well, the court doesn't decide my affairs. The court doesn't tell me what to do, period. They do what I tell them to do, period. They work for me. They work for us. They are fraudulently applying commercial codes to living men and women. They are tricking people into believing that they are some kind of product. Or let me back up. They are just tricking people into accepting responsibility for something that they have no business being responsible for. This is not only fraud, it is egregious fraud. And these people should know better, especially having gone through law school and supposedly attaining that bar status that everybody likes to talk about. That it's basically a standard where they have to meet a standard before they can become bar certified or bar licensed to practice law. Well, if that's the case, then how in the hell do these idiots overlook their own responsibilities and duties? Ignore that altogether to hold me accountable because I was asking them to do their damn job? What the fuck is wrong with these people? Who in their right mind would act this way? Well, I'll tell you who. Greedy bastards, that's who would. Because see, what these people do is they create this fraud. They drag us through court. They put us in jail. They put us in cages. Simply because they can. Because they've got the manpower. They've got the guns. So if you don't comply, they'll just shoot you. They'll threaten your life. They'll steal your property. They'll do whatever they have to make you comply. It has nothing to do with due process and quote-unquote justice and being fair. I had no chance of even having a fair trial, especially due to the fact that not only did these idiots ignore their own duties and obligations, not only did the prosecutor ignore exculpatory evidence, but the jury ignored the testimony of the witnesses when they admitted that not only did they have no idea that there was the Ohio Revised Code 715.49 in existence that was established by legislature, that they don't have the liberty, that they admitted that they don't have the liberty to suspend the Ohio Revised Code or suspend law in general or suspend the Constitution. They don't have that authority. But that's what they did. They admitted that on the stand under oath in my cross-examination when I asked them specifically. They knew about the Ohio Revised Code 715.49. And then I asked them, did you act on your own, or did somebody tell you that you didn't have a duty to act, or did somebody tell you what to think in this matter or in this situation? They said no, they acted on their own. So in that moment, they admitted that they were acting rogue outside of the bounds of the law that protects them. In that moment, in that testimony on the stand, they admitted that they acted on their own, so they lost all protections from the government. That's how stupid these people are. This is what they're willing to do to drag people like me through hell so they can bully, so they can get away with it, so they can be criminals that hide behind badges and uniforms and act like heroes. Granted, some of these people might actually, not, of course, none of these witnesses, but, police officers in general, see these witnesses, these 3 incompetent quota hire dispatchers that took the stand, as well as this incompetent law director. It's these type of people that give men and women who actually serve with honor a bad name. Because these people, these quota hire dispatchers, this incompetent law director, these incompetent prosecutors, this incompetent, I'm not even going to use the word, Kelly J. Cottrell, this incompetent human being, ignoring his own responsibilities. At any given moment in time, he should have realized that there was enough exculpatory evidence to throw the fucking case out. But he ignored it. He pressed the issue. He refused to listen to my pleadings, stating that who I am, that I am not the person, I am not acting in a corporate or commercial capacity. They don't have jurisdiction. But what did they do? They didn't want to hear it. They would fabricate a failure to appear warrant or some other bullshit to throw me back in a cage, to hurt me, to harm me further, to force me into submission. If any of you that are listening have gone through that type of a process, think about what you went through and it'll start to make sense. It'll start to click. This is what they do. They are committing egregious fraud. They are committing treason in these courts. They are applying codes and statutes to men and women that they don't apply to, simply because they can profit off of it by bonds that are created. Not only the the bonds for release and that sort of thing, but there's extra bonds that are created on the backside of the case, penal bonds and other bonds that are created that these people sell, these organizations sell on the open market for profit. That's what it's all about. It's all about money. It has nothing to do with justice or holding people accountable for their actions. If that was the case, then every one of these damn motherfuckers would be in prison for the rest of their fucking lives and they would never see the light of day again. But no, they commit fraud. They destroy my life. They take everything from me. They steal my property. And they stand in that fucking courtroom and act like they have something to stand on. They act like they're some type of honorable people. These are fucking cowards. They don't deserve the goddamn position or title or any of it. They deserve to be put in fucking prison for the shit that they did to me and they've done to so many other people. But who the hell's really gonna bring charges against them? Is there any attorney out there that's gonna actually file a suit? Is there any prosecutor who's actually gonna prosecute another attorney? Hell no. Hell no. They're all part of the same fucking group. It's called the Bar Association. This is what I talked about before. These people are actively working together to subvert the Constitution, to subvert the rule of law. They've been doing it for years. They've been doing it for decades. Playing on people's ignorance because we haven't been taught the truth about the reality that we live in. And we're not taught about how the courts work properly going through school. See, these are things that should be taught in not necessarily grade school, but like junior high, high school. There should be classes that touch on these types of things. But see, that's another part of the system to keep us down. Because if you don't know who you are, if you don't know what your rights are, if you don't know where your rights come from, then these asshats, these incompetent cunt attorneys can roll you over and do whatever the hell they want because you're subject to them. They're the ones that know how to operate in the courts. You know, we can't possibly know. We're just too unintelligent to be able to figure out how the courts work. Well, when you take it from the perspective of they don't have any standards that they follow, they don't follow their own standards, they don't follow their own duties and obligations. So yeah, it is a little fucking hard to figure out who the hell is doing what and how to navigate through the system because you don't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. Every moment that I found myself in front of these assholes, I had to like wing it. I had to figure out on the fly what the hell to do because I didn't know what they were going to pull next. Especially after going through 2 weeks, 30 days, 45 days, I think 56 days total in jail because I called some incompetent fucking people and asked them to do their goddamn job that they were supposed to do, required to by the very codes and statutes that bind them, that are established by the legislature, that they admitted that they didn't know about. Had I known about this Brady Rule, I would have added this in my appeal brief. I don't know if it would have mattered because they're all about procedure. They don't give a damn what the substance of the pleadings are. They don't give a damn what's actually transpired. All they care about is procedure. Oh, you don't have a form correct? Oh, we're sorry. The case is thrown out. Oh, you didn't check this box? Oh, the case is thrown out. That's how they operate. Because they're playing the game in their own favor. They're working together. It's nepotism. All of these people in the courts, I don't give a damn if it's the idiot up on the damn bench or the prosecutor or the public pretender attorney. I don't care who it is. They're all working together. Probation office. You know, there are good people in the lower rungs of some of these organizations that don't realize what's really going on. But the ones in the upper echelon, if you will, I hate to even say that or use that term, because it's like saying who's on top of the water in the toilet bowl. You know, there are some good people in these organizations. I met some good people in probation. that I was forced to talk to against my will because of this fraud. Um, but there are some extreme bad apples, especially the ones in charge. The ones in charge of probation, the ones in charge of the courts, you name it, all of the above. They're all in cahoots together because it's a business of making money. Has nothing to do with holding people accountable. In fact, according to the law, the actual law, not this bullshit that they're spinning in court and acting like is real, but it's not. It's very limited what they can apply those codes and statutes to. They only apply to corporate persons. Someone that's either acting on behalf of a corporation, owns a corporation. For example, like a Uber driver or a delivery driver for anything, whether food or auto parts or whatever. When they're acting in that capacity, when they're making money while doing what they're doing in public, they fall under that category as a person. If you're in the public and you're not working for somebody else or you're not working for a corporation and you're not making money to be in that position, in that place, you're not a person. You are a private man or a private woman or whatever the hell you want to call yourself. But what these people fail, let me back up. What these people refuse to pay attention to is reality. Because they are actively working to subvert the constitutions, they are actively working to subvert the rule of law, and they are actively working to destroy our country. I mean, hell, look what's happened already. If anybody's paid attention, I mean, let's look at the bigger picture a little bit. You know, while I was in there, what you may or may not know, I can't tell you how many people I saw being brought into these courtrooms where there wasn't even an actual crime. Because for there to be an actual crime, it's required to be a victim. There has to be a victim. There has to be someone that was injured or suffered some type of injury or loss for there to be a crime. Period. You look up the shit yourself. I'm not going to spoon feed you. You're probably not going to find this information on TikTok or Facebook. You're going to have to do some digging, and you're going to have to pay attention to the Constitution. Read the Constitution. Maybe some of you also start there, because a lot of you talk about the Constitution but have no idea what the hell you're talking about because you haven't even read the damn thing. The only reason you know what you know is because you were told by somebody else, and you just regurgitate that half-truth or that skewed information. And because you didn't take the opportunity to read it yourself and see that information was not exactly correct, you went along with it. That's what I used to do. I used to be ignorant too when I was a kid. But then at some point I grew up and I realized that I can't just expect other people to tell me what reality is. When I became a man, I put away childish things. When I became a man, I started to pay attention and I started to challenge everything. Everything that I found myself coming into contact with or experiencing, you know, like this situation primarily, because that's the topic. When this whole situation, especially when it first started happening, when I first started dealing with this noise nuisance problem and started reaching out to the city and multiple different departments and trying to figure out who in the hell or whom is actually going to be responsible here and do their job, because these people are getting paid. They've been supposedly elected. They've been appointed to do a job. They're getting paid to do a job, but they're not doing it. They're doing something different. They're doing whatever the hell they want to do. And it's even worse than that. It's more egregious and more nefarious than that, because they are destroying people's lives. Putting people in prison for 15, 20 years for drug violations when, okay, they got caught with possession of a drug. Who cares if they're dealing that in their own private capacity? If they're not, working for a company doing, selling that product, there's no jurisdiction. But because these people don't know any better, they go in there, and people like Keith A. Edwards step in and say, "Oh, well, I'll help you." And all they do is they work amongst each other against the person that they're supposed to be protecting. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. Against the man or woman, because in that context, they're not a person. In fact, these attorneys, court personnel, all of them, they are persons. Police officers, they're persons. All of these people that are acting on behalf of a service corporation or a corporation in general, they fall under the definition of person when they're in that official capacity. When they're off duty, that's their own private time. In that instance, they are a private man or woman in that capacity. It's not until they put on the uniform and they clock their time card or however the hell they do it nowadays, and they're on the clock. They're making money. That's when they become that person. That's when they actually fall under these codes and statutes. These codes and statutes apply to them more so than they do to me or any private man or woman. But that's what these people do. See, Michael T. Hughes should have known about the Brady Rule. Ronald Lynch should have known about the Brady Rule. Kelly J. Carottrell should have known about the Brady Rule. The foreperson of the grand jury should have known about the Brady Rule. The law director should have known about the Brady Rule. I mean, I'll tell you, I have never questioned a more incompetent person than the law director on the stand under oath. This guy looked clueless on the stand. And based on his answers that he gave to my questions, proved it. He had no idea what he was doing. They didn't expect me to question. They didn't expect the questions that I asked. I don't think they anticipated the information that was going to be put on the record. But because they manipulate the courts, because they have this whole system that they've created outside of the bounds of the law, it makes it nearly impossible for someone like myself to be able to navigate through that system and have a leg to stand on, to even hope or have a prayer of getting a fair trial. Because the whole entire time, throughout any of the hearings, up until the last part when the jury came back with a supposed verdict, I was confident that I was going to win the damn case. Because I had won it every other time before in the municipal court, except for the very first time when the current jerk-off that's in the municipal court, his father was there and fabricated a plea deal, which, unbeknownst to me, he fabricated on his own. I didn't know they could do that. Instead of paying attention to the facts and the truth, listening to the recorded conversation that I had with the individual, with the person that was claiming some type of wrongdoing. See, they would have thrown the case out had they paid attention to this evidence and information. But they didn't. In fact, back then in 2018, when that first incident happened, excuse me, I had hired out of pocket an attorney from here to help me with the case, because originally I went to this jerk-off attorney to have them help me file a civil suit to help me make sure I had all the paperwork together and make sure it was correct to file a civil suit against the city for their actions. What they did was they spun it in a different direction and made me think that they were going to put me in jail or prison or something like that. So I was like, no, there's no way. But anyways, so I ended up hiring him. Well, come to find out, he wasn't working for me anyways. He was taking my money, but he was working with the sitting jerk off in charge and the prosecuting attorney to try to get me put into a mental hospital so they could fix the problem. See, that was their idea of fixing the problem, not addressing the disturbance of the peace, not to address the noise nuisance issues. No, see, they didn't view that as an issue. I was the problem because I was asking them to do their job, and they didn't want to do it. They don't want to do their job. They want their cake and eat it too. They want to do whatever the fuck they want to do and get paid for it. They want to be able to ignore the laws and still get paid. Well, according to the Constitution and according to maxims of commerce, all are equal under the law. So these people, for their extreme malfeasance in office, for their egregious misconduct, they will be held accountable. Not only will they have to bear the financial burden of what they've done, but because of this new information that came to light, the Brady Rule, I will be putting together a lawsuit and filing it in federal district court under Title 42, Section 1983 for deprivation of rights, privileges, and immunities that are secured by the Constitution that they ignored. As well as Title 18, Section 241 for conspiracy against rights. Title 18, Section 242 for deprivation of rights under color of law. And so many more. I've got several of them, of the federal codes listed in my documents that I'll be sending out here shortly. At this point now, I mean, I think I'm in shock a little bit because of how blatant they are about it. Right in our faces, getting away with it. They're no better than a schoolyard bully that takes advantage of smaller kids and steals their lunch money or beats them up for shits and giggles. That's the equivalent of these people. They're schoolyard bullies. Well, one thing I learned at a very young age about schoolyard bullies, when you stand up to them, they crumble like cowards.